Hello, everyone. My name is Pierre from the Lean Hire podcast. And today I have a special guest, my good friend Jack from my YC Winter 19 batch. Jack, welcome to the show.
Well, hello there.
Hello
Thank you for
there.
having me.
And for some of you who might not know Jack yet, Jack, what are you working on?
Well, I am the co-founder of Copa, and my two co-founders, Courtney and Zach, are phenomenal humans that do really everything for the company. I just get to be the face, so shout out to them. Copa is the medium-term furnished housing marketplace where we help you find that place to live for, 1 to 12 months, the people to live with a housemate matcher, and even things to do once you move in so you can feel a sense of community once you're there.
Cool. So it's basically, well, I don't want to sound too simple, but like the Airbnb for like a longer term and also socially matching interests. Like, hey, I want to meet tech people or I want to meet people of arts, science, and you can basically find communities, sort of like the real social network, the real people.
Man, I dig it. Yeah, that's a good description. Yeah.
Nice, yeah. And Jack and I have actually been in the same YC group office hours, and I've been following his journey when he was still used to call Pat Piper. For some reasons, you've choose to rename. And man, I'm just super pumped to see you again. It's been so long time, and I don't think we would have done this if there wouldn't be COVID, because I wouldn't have like shut down our company, which is sad. Like small, like sad trumpet music, but I think all of us are in a situation right now where it's like a whole new world of work, and I want to talk with you about what has changed in your company. You had an office, you're not working from the office right now as we speak. What has changed in this new world for you?
Yeah, so not only the name, so we were Pad Piper, which anyone wondering, 100% is a joke on the show Silicon Valley. Um, it
Which
turns
is
out,
great. You should see it. If you haven't seen it, you should see it. The last season, but everything else was dope. Yeah. So yeah,
it's
sorry to
so
interrupt.
funny. Oh my God. Yeah, it turns out tying your name to a show on its last season is maybe not the best idea. So we changed that, and it has deeper meaning now. So Copa translates to together because we're bringing, renters and hosts together, renters together to form housemate groups, and even bringing the renters together once they move in. So beyond that, what's changed? The remote thing actually is something we have done from the get-go. We did technically go to an office during YC, just the three of us co-founders, but yeah, we've decided to do the fully remote thing from the get-go. So got lucky making the right decision there. And we have kind of been working from home for, over a year now. And I guess we're training for this moment. So, it's obviously a never-ending learning process with how to work remotely. But we are very fortunate to have been way more prepared for this than
Yeah.
many who now have to suddenly learn how to do it.
Yeah, and both of us, I remember we're not from Silicon Valley. We went from you came from Canada. I came from Germany, and you had probably contractors in Canada or in the original company in the original country, and I think I remember, and we talked about our fundraising, and I got some no's because we wouldn't be in San Francisco, which sucks. I get it. Like it's harder to sell because you're not in person and you need to do it on Zoom and stuff. Um, but this has changed. Like I wouldn't say we're in a good position, but at least we had like 2 years of experience before. And but I just feel like how can, like, the reason why I started Lean Hire is it's really, really scary to hire someone you haven't met yet. Like it's easy to hire someone that you meet and have multiple personal interactions and guide them through the office and have them work and sit next to you, but it's not that easy when you don't know the person. Maybe you just got a loose recommendation from someone across the world. So where Lean Hire is coming from is, how can we restructure, how can we break up this old hiring process of like a CV hand in, go through like HR and all these different procedures, and then maybe you have, if you're lucky, you get an internship, but this is like a very scary construct, doing remote and like having someone from across the world. So to put it short, lean hire tries to shorten that cycle to get someone up to speed from the very first day and hire him as a contractor, and then slowly like increase their endeavors and engagement in the company. And last point to that, most people don't know, but a US company can't easily hire someone from Germany, and that's goes for like several countries, because it's not that easy to get someone on the payroll if they're not localized in the same country. But while this is a challenge for most companies, it's also a huge opportunity to like shift this whole way of working towards like a more contract-based style of work. And a company would never employ someone for like a week, or like 10 hours a week or 5 hours a week. Like they would just not spend the time on this type of hire. But if you can like automate a lot of stuff and keep these cycles shorter in the contract basis, then it's where you can de-risk these hires. And the reason why I'm telling you is like, how is your hiring process so far, like remote? Have you done like something similar before, or have you always been like all in, I'm sure this is the right fit?
Man, I think this is such an appropriate conversation to have. First of all, I do want to say I think lean hire is brilliant. I think it's going to be huge, honestly. I'm not just saying that. Like I want to also start off saying I see both sides of the equation on the whole contractor thing. As an employer, I have now learned how much more ideal that the kind of contractor lean hire is. But my sister has been a contractor and recently, became a full-time hire up in Seattle. But I saw firsthand how, there really is a controversy here because, she wanted those benefits, the health benefits and whatnot, and wanted to feel like a full-time employee. So I do want to note, like I see, both sides of this kind of debate, but I definitely much more lean toward the business side, having gone through this firsthand. And to dive into that, we started our very first 3 hires as full-time employees. And, we're talking, full health benefits, all those extra kind of 30% on top that you pay in the US.
Right.
And it honestly was not the move. It really wasn't. 2 of those 3 didn't work out. And that's not even, why I don't think that was the right decision. It's just now having hired contractors in replacement, just the, output we've got in contrast has been phenomenal. It's like, it's not even comparable how much more we've got out of these contractors for, less cost overall.
Yeah.
And again, like I do want to note, I see there's still a controversy here. It's tough, right? Like the business
100%.
is much
It's not
more,
black and white. Yeah, it's definitely
exactly. And especially the whole like gig economy, gig worker deal, right? Like obviously California, there's a lot of laws going around about like Uber drivers, should they be full-time employees,
right,
etc.
right.
But it seriously is, I think maybe even more of a testament to the lack of universal health care here in the US, that like as an employer, we have to pay this huge extra amount. So it really, it's tough. But again, I think the lean hire as a business has absolutely been the way to go. And that has now become like one of my core pieces of advice I'll give to younger founders, with hiring their first employees, is seriously just go down the contractor route. We kept that one full-time hire that is absolutely worth every penny. He's a phenomenal engineer, been coding since he was 12, over 20 years now. Like, yes.
Amazing.
Yes. And in some cases, that will be the case. Like you do need to hire that full-time person because like they're very much worth it. But for a lot of these other hats in the company that, people are filling, I think the contractor route and lean hire is the way to go. We now have a contractor in Pakistan who has been phenomenal. Philippines, same. One here in San Jose even. And oh my gosh, the output we're getting from them is amazing. And that has been probably the biggest learning I've had in the last 8 months.
Yeah. And I think, so there's different forcing functions where it's like payroll versus contract basis. And so one of the forcing functions is just like the legal restrictions. Like an US company can't just easily hire someone from the Philippines or from Germany or from anywhere else. But a global company or a remote company they want to have the full-time commitment. Like you will crush your code base if you have like bits and pieces from around the world and everyone's like hopping on and off again. So I think where there's like a vacuum, like space untapped, is like this hybrid of having someone start very, very early on a contract basis where, well, this person has great output, but I want to meet, well, it's sort of like de-risking for both parties. Like maybe the person doesn't want to commit too much time, or he's not really into the industry or the market or the team. So it's not always the employer who wants to de-risk. It's also the person who's engaging with the company. And I think starting much earlier, like in a very small scope project, in a week project or 2-week projects, it's just so little risk for both parties. And then you can like upgrade these risks, these projects. And you said like the health benefits and healthcare. We need to definitely find a way to fix this. But a German company, I'm living in Germany, I have healthcare by default. So if I would be on your payroll and you would twist your brain how you can figure this out, like this person doesn't need to get the benefits, like I get benefits by default, right? And the contracting's like relationship is just like the playing field, like it makes everything even. And then if you hire someone from a country that doesn't have healthcare benefits, then you can upgrade his contract and include that. Like you can do third-party benefits. Like it's very sad to read it, but like Cherry was one of these companies who had to shut down, who was doing like these benefits as a service. And I think not only, like if you have the chance in the same country, you should always go for a high full-time payroll. Like everything's perfectly matched for it. But we look for the next 10 years, and there's no way that the governments will figure out a way how they can legally hire someone from Germany in the next 5 years. It's not happening. So it's not a question of this or that. It's literally, how can we make contract work feel like it's full-time work? How can we get these people into the company that are full-time employees, are full-time engineers, and be part of the culture, but are not on the payroll? And I think a lot of companies have shown that this can work. And I think one of the core parts of Lean Hire is not about the quality or quantity of the skills. It's also how the team fit. And is this someone I really want to work with for the long term? And the faster you get these insights, the better you can make these decisions. So that's what I'm looking for. And I think more and more companies will have these issues going forward. You were in a lucky position to have had this situation before. But my question is, like, you've scaled to a lot of cities right now, as you said in the pre-recording. How is your company growing? Are you hiring in different cities now? Has anything changed since you've moved outside of the Bay Area?
Yeah, we already had opened up our option pool, let's say, to North America when we started hiring and decided we were going to do remote. And those full-time hires, one was in Texas, one happened to be in the Bay Area, but we really were open to anywhere with U.S. authorization, so that paying them through Gusto was easier.
Right, exactly.
Like you say, yeah. I would say now we have definitely more shifted toward an international scope. Now that we are more interested in the contractor route instead of going the full-time route, since we don't have to worry about those international payments, like you say. Which, by the way, shout out to, I think, a YC company, Deal, who I think makes that a little easier.
Yeah.
They're probably
just raised their Series A, by the way.
Yeah,
Amazing
I saw that.
story. Yeah, Alex.
And so now I would say our option pool has kind of opened up, right? I mentioned, we have someone in Pakistan, someone in the Philippines, someone who kind of happens to be here in the Bay Area again, but that has definitely become more international. And I did want to touch on too, I think you make a great point that there definitely are benefits to being a consultant from the consultant standpoint. There are those challenges we need to solve, like, still making consultants feel like a full-time member, part of the team. But I think culture-wise, we can solve that. It's a good point that from their perspective, they do also get to try something out that maybe they don't want to commit, full-time, like, oh, quitting is a big deal and annoying. They could just easily, if they wanted to. And it makes me think of internships, honestly, which I did 6 internships myself, and I am such a huge fan. Like, we
It's
need
the background of your company, right?
that's true. That's literally why we started. Is we struggled with housing on those, 4 or 6 month internships because it was built into our curriculum. And consulting really is a lot like that. As a company, we get to try
Yeah.
this person out.
Yeah.
Maybe it even could become like, yeah, a full-time thing with the benefits or whatever, if things were going really well. But yeah, from that consultant standpoint, as an intern, I got to just try out different companies, different like roles. I did some software engineering, some project management. Yeah, I really do see that benefit as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And the funny comparison between being an intern and being a lean hire is, first, you can do it at any time. Like, you can do an internship at the age of 50, right? It's just, there's no, like, people always think like an internship is like when you finish your university and you want to try something out and you're like very, very junior and everything. But second, a lean hire can be for any position. It can be for a designer, for a copywriter, for an engineer, and also at any time and point in time. And I think if you talk about an intern is usually like a way to get someone, I would say, like very young in an industry. Like, he probably, again, is a junior in something, and that's why he's choosing an intern position. But we don't really have something if you're an expert, if you want to test something, right? How would you join a company that you really find exciting on the surface, but just want to test it? Like, how do you do that? How do we iterate? How do we move lean in regards of hiring? Like, let's say I want to work at your company. Would you put me on a payroll for like a week per month? Probably not. And if you would hire me as a contractor, well, is it an agency? Is he doing other projects? Like, what is it there? Like, yada, yada. So I think there's like so much space between like the Fivers of the world, where it's like very clear these people do hundreds of deals per week or per month, and the Gusto, the Triple Byte, the full-time sourcing engine. And now more than ever, there's like this huge talent pool where so many people are in the middle. They don't really want to do like the Fiverr work, but they also don't want to be like full-time ish. And they are experts. They are not interns. They are not juniors. And this is what excites me. And I think there's so many new opportunities coming up for people in rural areas, in cities outside of the Bay Area. And you said correctly, you have people in even outside of Europe and outside of America. And that's I think where it just must be the future of work. It's just
Yeah,
no alternative, I'd say.
I love it. I think, I just thought of an analogy too. It's I keep relating it to our company, but you are that middle gap between the full-time, Gusto, let's say, and the WeWork or sorry,
Upwork.
yeah, thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Fivers and them, or TaskRabbit or whatever you want to call it. You're kind of in the middle, and that's how we feel too with like short-term Airbnb and then long-term, apartments.com. Then we're kind of in the middle. It's kind of funny. We're each trying to solve that middle gap. And I wanted to say too, I think it's a great point that the lean hire solves that kind of negative stigma around internships. Like you say, if you're older and not like a student or a recent grad, it might even feel weird to say I'm an intern or getting an internship. And yeah, the lean hire model solves that.
Yeah. And to be fair, I mean, Facebook and Twitter are paying good salaries for an intern, but most companies don't. And maybe that's also a way, like a contract, like a lean hire is not lean on a price. It's just lean on the experience. It's lean on getting the person to like run experiments. So don't get me wrong, a lean hire is not cheap. Like and lean and cheap is not equal, right? Like, everyone knows that a lean process can be very expensive, but it's always worth it usually. Well, always and usually, but it's definitely worth it if you do it correctly. So you can most definitely land a high paid contract job plus the opportunity to then go full time if you like the team. So I think that's like something where everyone knows if it's a Fiverr job, it's low paid. It's in the name. And by having really shitty paid contracts, you need to have so much volume which causes so much burnout and stress that if you have a chance that there is something in between, you can just charge a higher rate, and this might be enough, and you can do two like lean hires like as a contractor per month. Like you can work at two companies. Like why do we restrict ourselves to be working at only one company when there's founders running three companies simultaneously? And man, I think this is like, it must be the future. I can totally see it where I saw a tweet, and I want to get your perspective on it. Someone said, if we have remote people and we don't do video calls and it's just like a back and forth of like topics what to work on, this is an API. Like if you have someone working somewhere, like as a daemon in the background, like a node daemon or like some other stuff, and you give them like, hey, this is the week's task, like a task manager, and the result comes like 7 days later, it's just a very bad connection, like a 7-day connection to get a result back from the API call. I think that's a really, really interesting concept. Like I don't like it from like a person to person relation. Like it's very abstractive and very objectifying work. And work is more than that. But on a pure surface level, he's right. Like if this is how work's becoming, and in my previous company, we had one engineer who was probably one of the most efficient workers, who has the lowest time per month spent on work. And my experience with him was, I called him like once a Monday, I had a one-to-one Zoom, and said, well, this is what we need to work on. This was good last week, this was bad, and here's what we need to do this week. And that was it. And it was sort of like a video API where it's like, but it could easily be, I wouldn't say productized, but put into like a more abstract thing. And this is also something that most people don't really have on their radar, that this can easily turn into like also a way of working.
I think I can see the header on the Lean Hire website now. Treat your consultants like humans, not an API.
Ooh.
Right?
or if you want to go the opposite way and be like the most controversial company on TechCrunch that week, and you just say like, treat your employees like an API, and that's the opposite, and then you would probably be crushed by everyone.
Yeah.
Maybe companies like the bad 5 companies would reach out to you and say, oh my god, I need to work with you. Yeah.
We
No,
also disrespect people. Yes.
We also are against benefits, no healthcare, everyone should slave away their life, and no salaries. No, I really, really hope that this is not how it's ending. No one knows. Everyone is free to implement their own way of lean hiring, but I definitely think this is more a pro than a con. And yeah,
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah,
honestly. And I wanted to touch on too, you did mention, I think like the negative stigma of internships can oftentimes stem from the fact that many are unpaid. And so, the lean hire, gets rid of all that negative stigma, make sure they're paid, treated like a full-time employee, just kind of avoiding the, at least in the US, really awful healthcare system here, and, some other kind of obstacles you have to get through with the whole full-time hire thing.
Yeah. So you have more experience in the US talking about healthcare. How does it work as a freelancer? You're responsible for your own healthcare, obviously. Tell me more about, I don't know if you have any insights, if you have worked with someone who's a contractor in the US, but is it cheaper? Is it more expensive? How is it like being self-employed? Like being a lean hire in the beginning, especially, is a self-employment to keep the processes like easier and faster to move. Tell me more about, if you have any experience, like what is it like to be a self-employed person in the US? Like, not being employed by a company, but literally on your own as a sole LLC, not even LLC, just as a sole freelancer.
Yeah, I honestly can't say I'm an expert, but in general, it is some more work to find your own health insurance. Like you say, depending on the kind of model of lean hire you go for, you could cover that healthcare even, right? Like it doesn't, have to be like, the negative stigmas around the freelancer world that my sister experienced in Seattle. I honestly couldn't say like what the best resources are for finding your own health insurance, you know, when you are kind of that, lean hire. But I do hope that, you know, Deal and others make this whole industry just a
Yeah.
lot easier
Yeah.
soon.
Yeah. Yeah. And so one of the reasons why I ask is that so the lean hire is usually like a full focus on the work and the culture and the team, and but having a remote global economy and team at some point, there's just so many different ways how the systems work. Like every single country has its own way of work, and it might be like having more people be contractors might be a huge accelerator to a lot of like trends. Let's say if there's a huge amount of new self-employed people in the US because of unemployment, let's say, and this is the best way to get back into jobs, that space will develop so much faster than if it would be company driven. Like I'm a huge believer that and it's true in Germany, that your health insurance should not be bound to the company. I think that at its core is so wrong, and it goes back so many years into horrible times where it's like your landlord is sort of like and I hope this could change. Like this, I wouldn't say this is the main trend, but once the US sort of figure out how to do healthcare, hopefully at some point, we might see a trend. Like for me, it's no difference if I'm a freelancer or if I'm employed at a company. Like I always get the benefits. I always sort of, maybe I pay more, maybe I pay less. There's like some limits, some income limits and restrictions. But I really, really hope that the health benefits will not be this deciding point between going contract or employment. And it's just again leveling the playing field. Like it's sort of like the whole equalizer to like across the country. So I hope, like I know it's really, really bad if it puts you in a bad position for contract work and healthcare, but this could also accelerate the trend. So
Yeah. And I think the other kind of topic that you're alluding to there too is we're almost removing borders between work, right? Like
yeah,
it's, you know, getting a little metaphorical here, but the same way, you know, COVID-19 doesn't, borders don't matter, right? Like
yeah,
it's going to go everywhere. Everyone is treated the same. It is kind of cool that this lean hire model really just says, you know, may the best most efficient, like cost-effective worker win, right? It doesn't matter what country you come from. Like if you are better at this job and for the amount you're paid, you know, you can get that job just as easily as someone from, maybe a well-developed country or a not as well-developed country. And yeah, you know, again, I can see both sides where there's again this thing in the US around like, oh, American made, like our manufacturing plants are here in America, like we don't outsource it to China or whatever. I can get some aspects of the arguments they're making, but at the same time, it's like if we just, you know, get over all this political crap of like this country is better than that one, and like
yeah,
you know, these ones are enemies and we don't want to, you know, work
yeah,
with that country. I mean, sure, it'll take some change in leadership in a lot of
yeah,
those countries, but
yeah,
if we can get over that, then it shouldn't matter if your manufacturing plant, let's say you're an American company, if it's in Canada or China or the US, like it really shouldn't matter. It should be whoever produces the best work for the amount of money should, you know, deserve that work.
and you're talking about manufacturing, and we talk something as very simple as like knowledge worker. So this should have been a trend, or this should have been like common sense years ago. Like for me as a German, it was always baffling to see how much money people spend in the Bay Area on engineers. And I was joking even in YC when people ask me like, hey, what's your team like, and burn rate and stuff, and it was just like blown away what you can get for the same amount of money in other countries. And these people are not 5x or 10x worse engineers, maybe even the opposite, because it's just you never know where these people come from. But this is just something that so many companies don't have on their radar. And I want to get your take on this. And so there is definitely an arbitrage. Like everyone knows, there's a geo arbitrage in jobs, like hiring someone from Pakistan and in Germany. Even Germany is a low salary country for a lot of companies. How would you pay your engineers? Like, would you pay them on output or would you pay them on location? I think that's one, like on the ongoing debates that I've seen on like because of Facebook and on Twitter. And I don't really have an answer. Like I do get both sides, and I do think we need a hybrid, but what does a hybrid look like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was literally just reading my daily hustle digest that was going over this Facebook controversy. And yeah, it is interesting. They now are saying they want to start paying depending on the cost of living in that location,
And
which the
sometimes even
main,
zip code.
oh, interesting.
Like
Okay.
sometimes, I mean, maybe not Facebook, but some companies do by zip code, which is nuts. Like, why is my neighbor in the same position I got? What the fuck, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
I mean, I think the challenge they're facing is primarily having paid an employee X amount and now that employee's moving and should they pay a different amount? I think that's the main challenge. But if you
yeah,
hired off the bat for that location, you know, a salary that matches where the cost of living of where they live, I don't think you'd run into the same issues that Facebook's running into. And the other issue, I think, the argument that they're making against what Facebook's doing with a higher salary based on cost of living is that cost of living can fluctuate, right? Like
yeah,
Miami apparently recently has kind of gone up a lot in cost of living, and then you'd have to kind of constantly be tracking those salaries. But again, I think that actually is a good model, is paying depending on the cost of living where you live, right? Like that is why a lot of customer support and whatnot is in the Philippines, because the cost of living is so little that the wage they need to get by is not nearly as high as the US, for example. So
yeah.
I think that makes sense, right? Like that's why you would even hire in less expensive countries, is because the cost of living is less there. I don't think even if you're just looking at engineering, you would need to pay the same salary no matter where you are. It's like that's almost the whole reason to hire in different countries. And I'll also note, like you mentioned, there used to be, again, a negative stigma around hiring engineering, especially in other countries. And I think the reason for that was, sure, they were cheaper, but it used to be that maybe the quality of code wasn't as good, and even like the communication was more difficult, and that can just lead to way more issues, right? So even if they cost half as much and their coding
Could be
isn't
more expensive in the
half,
back. Yeah.
exactly, even if their coding isn't half as good, there's still other issues. But I think we're now at the point where there are phenomenal engineers all over the world that maybe, yeah, you don't quite hit the talent level in Silicon Valley,
Yeah.
let's say, but for, let's say half the cost, the coding quality and overall communication and whatnot is still over half as good. So it's
Yeah.
a net
Yeah.
benefit to do.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to get into your first point, because I think I hope I'm disagreeing, because I want to take this conversation into a direction where I think hiring globally should not be a matter of price, of salary. Like I think the reason why we have these super spiked salaries in the Bay Area is cost of living is super high. But why is cost of living so high? Like it's definitely like a spiral where salaries get higher, rents get higher, salaries get higher, or even your coffee. And I think if you really treat talent pool globally, it would be an equalizer. It would be that, yes, salaries will go down in San Francisco, salaries will go down in the Bay Area, but also rent will. Like, you're in the rent business, you've seen the trends, you've seen a lot of more supply coming on the streets, and more supply always means cheaper rent, usually, hopefully. So what I think, and I really like, I've seen gentrification in Germany. I've seen it in rural areas where people are getting kicked out, and the Bay Area is the best example of homelessness crisis. But I think one of the ways how we can actually solve this on a global scale is to, I wouldn't go like straight up into doing everything equal. Like, I still think there is some arguments to have separate salaries, different salaries. I don't have an argument pro for it right now, but there is definitely some. And I think when we start hiring same salary, same job, same different location, that's where the gentrification will be like less bad in communities like the Bay Area, and even improve the areas like Utah, Minnesota, Chicago, where the people now live and work. And I know this is bad, but like tech has this unfair advantage of like being, you can work from everywhere. But then again, if there's a community building around tech, and tech work will be more and more like relevant in the next few years, these people also buy coffees. So now you level up the coffee shop at the local corner, because now the local shop can earn more because there's more, and the, I don't know, hotels and stuff. So honestly, I think one of the main reasons why we have so bad gentrification in these hubs is because of the mantra of not paying the same. It's because we need to pay more for San Francisco, and the landlords know, okay, now we have more people at higher salaries, so we can charge more. And so I think this has definitely a lot on a global impact, and this could turn around quite quickly when there's so much new supply coming in these previously dense hotspots and people leaving San Francisco. Like, this is a whole new debate. I don't want to scratch this topic, but
Yeah,
what's
to
your take
touch
on
on
that
it,
one, right?
yeah, to touch on it briefly, I will say I am intrigued by the idea of salaries being set less by the company and more by the employee. You know, I'm intrigued by that thought, right? Because then instead of us as a company saying, oh, this exact amount is what, you know, this position is worth, it can be, hey, like, we have this position open, apply to us with what salary you would like, and, you know, your skills to go with it. And then it can actually become, you know, a decision of, okay, is this person at, let's say, I don't know, 30K a year in some other countries, with, you know, maybe half the experience of this other person at 80K a year here in the Bay Area. Like, is that the kind of hire we want to go for? So I'm intrigued by that thought. So instead of, yeah, us setting the price and then no matter where you are, you get the same salary. I'd like to see if that could become a future where you as the employee are set it, and then promotions and raises could be a more frequent thing, right? Like, it doesn't, yeah, have to be this kind of archaic model of this is what we're paying, you know, every year you get a 10% increase. Like, why not have, okay, you set the price, you're maybe newer in this industry of engineering, let's say, but if you're crushing it, sure, like, you deserve a 20% salary
Right.
increase in 6 months, maybe another 30% in a year, because you're just growing so fast. You know,
Yeah.
I'm intrigued by that model. And I did want to say too, I think remote work is going to change things drastically, right? So the main reason salaries and rent is so high here is because all these Bay Area companies that hire in an office are bringing everyone here. So you're getting,
Right.
you know, 2 times the number of people living here, let's say year over year, but the number of new houses is not even close
Doesn't
to
add
two
up.
times.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that's why the rent skyrockets. That's
Yeah.
why salaries have to skyrocket to match. And obviously, salaries have to skyrocket to compete with all those other companies here.
Right. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think remote will also help flatten that.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is something like most people don't want to hear it at a really high paid job, but the way you still keep that, well, I'd say like margin on your own salary is by actually moving. Like, at some point, people will see, well, if I do 100K at Facebook living in a tiny apartment in San Francisco, is that really worth more than earning 70 in at a beautiful lake in whatever where, right? So I think um the the even if there's different salaries, like I hope not. I hope there's like some equalization, just because I think people should be paid the same ever, like for the same output, for the same results. Like, if it's different engineering level, sure, but same job, same sex, same different location, where you are, whatever you do, if your job is to commit this amount of output, you should pay the same. Like, this is just my assumption, and this is how we've always treated the people that I've worked with. But this is not always the case, and there's always companies doing it differently. But I deeply hope that there will be people making the decision not on a pure monetary incentive, but also like just lifestyle and cost of living and life quality. Like there's definitely things that need to be done in the Bay Area. Like no one can deny that, and it might be even a relief when there is less of a stranglehold by these power companies. When there's like, so I think this is overall it's a positive sum game, and but no one knows how. Like there's this whole new situation. Like I don't know if you saw the Bookface post. For those of you unaware, like the YC internal forum, where it was like, I think a company announced on Product Hunt that they offer like virtual addresses, virtual boxes for companies or even employees. So maybe that's one way how these like smart hackers, employees will like have a virtual office in a virtual address in San Francisco and work from Utah or Minnesota.
I will say that has been one weird thing as a fully remote company is the address. I
Oh
still
yeah.
have my parents' address as like the one tied to our incorporation. And when I have to use a San Francisco address, like, yeah, I'm using my home address. Like, it's weird. I don't like it. I don't want to use my home address, but yeah,
Oh,
it's an
stable is
odd
the
thing.
company. Yes. Yeah. No, I fully agree. It's kind of weird. And it's same for me. Like, luckily I shared, so my current company I shared with another company, and I've just made a deal that I give them full access to like the 5 letters per year that we get, and they just scan it and send it to me. But not everyone has this like service on hand, so there's definitely a lot of uh, changes in future companies in that space as well. And hopefully, like even in Germany, you need to have a physical address. Why? Like, sure, at some point, but like maybe have some sort of email. Like, have you heard of that? Like, it's good technology. You can use that. So yeah, it is definitely some level 2, level 3 waves of changes coming when there's more companies going remote, and no one can really say what it's like, but there's definitely change coming, and I'm really excited.
Man, same. It makes me think of, maybe moving from physical addresses to, yeah, I guess virtual ones. It's almost like moving from physical mail to electronic. Please make the mail
Yes.
stop. Oh my God, the amount of junk
Oh,
mail alone. Oh, awful.
some most people don't know, but in Germany, I wrote a Medium post about this, but when you incorporate your company, your address, your name, and the name of the company, like my personal name, will be shown in a public record, and everyone will just spam you, like especially in the first few weeks when it's like very early in the incorporation. You get like fake letters from fake institutions that say like you need to pay this fee for incorporation, and you don't, because it's not official, it's a scam. And it's a billion-dollar industry of people getting scammed and paying like $200, like tiny amounts of money, to like incorporation protocols and services on top. And it just blows my mind that there's like a public record when you incorporate, and then the next week I'm like opening my mail, my physical mail, and there's just all this junk in there, and I'm just like,
Man,
I
that
hope this will change.
literally just happened to us. We just got a trademark on Copa, and uh, we got a physical piece of mail to the address it was tied to with a scam trying to get $1,400. And it
It's
honestly
crazy.
looked really legit. And I don't know, it's my first trademark I filed for. I don't know how the
Exactly,
process
right?
works exactly. And I literally had to ask our trademark lawyer, like, hey, like, do I need to do something? Like, do I need to pay this? Like, I genuinely didn't realize it was a scam. They had a real website to go with the letter. It looked all official. Man, I'm with you, man.
Yo, I've seen some of these scammers like even incorporate like the flag of the country at some, like in the logo, and then you scroll down and it's like a incorporated Inc. or LLC somewhere in like somewhere, and it's scary. But I mean that's just one of the quirks you gotta get around when you do like become an entrepreneur. But um, it shouldn't be that way. But I don't think we will get around having physical addresses anytime soon. It's I mean, looking at the way the governments digitalize their services, it's probably on the last thing that's going to happen. But I'm pushy for like these companies that offer like virtual addresses and scan all the stuff and send it to you by mail. Like I think this is definitely a huge opportunity to tap into. But then also some employees abusing that service to be registered in a high paid city and then work from Utah. Like who's even proving that? Right? Like how would a company like Facebook ensure that the people actually live in the Bay Area? How would they do that? Like maybe they have an aunt or a family member living there and they get that lives there, but there's no way they're going to check that. And when
That's,
there's
yeah.
yeah.
No, I agree. I couldn't agree more. Like, I don't think it really should be based on where you live, but rather like I'm intrigued by a future where the worker sets the salary instead of a company saying this is the exact amount we're paying for this position. It could be like, hey, this is the position we're hiring for. Just start getting the applications with, you know, the salary they would like, and kind of see, you know, which works best for you. Maybe the higher salary with the higher experienced person is the right fit for that position, or, you know, the newer hire for a lower salary is actually the better way to go. So that's I think I'm with you. I don't think like it should be based on where you live. That's like so hard to calculate, but I'm intrigued by
and the interesting thing, and I don't always want to go back to lean hire, but I mean, it's the name of the podcast, but you could solve that. You could solve one of these issues of like putting out a job proposal, let's say like at 100K and 2% or 1% equity. Like this is so artificially made up and no one really knows if this makes sense or not. Like you send it around to a bunch of founders and say, well, can I send this? Is this legit? Like what happens next? But one of the ways you can dodge that is actually by doing a lean hire, by just saying, well, this is the job we need to do. And I don't know what the full-time position would look like, but you're not applying for a full-time position. You want to get this stuff, like this mini project done. And then while we work on it, we can figure out how much time do you want to spend? What is your engineering skill? Like, even if you say you're a senior, are you a senior? And then go from there and then slowly iterate on the person, on the culture fit, on the salaries, on the location. I think this is just a much better approach for hiring than doing like this old school. We put on a like it. I think it actually came from a Western where it's like you put on like a blackboard and you say like wanted. I want a shoemaker and I pay 2K or something. I don't know, some arbitrage way of hiring. It feels like it's the same since hundreds of years. So
exactly, like a bounty.
Yeah, like a bounty, exactly. Like we need this buck bounty and we pay so much money for it. Yeah, that's a good summary. Cool. Well, for you, Kopa, I hope all the best for the future demand of like long-term rental. Obviously, your business is not that what does he say, like disrupted as Airbnb's ones, because Airbnb's only travelers. So you've been actually lucky. You thought, I think in YC you actually thought about doing something more closer to travel. I'm really happy you didn't. That this is like a way for people to find good roommates and stay at their place. So yeah, all the best for you and your company. And man, you said, what was that, 40 cities? Is that correct?
Yeah, we suddenly found ourselves in over 40 US cities, which is pretty exciting.
Wow, that's amazing. 40. I remember when we were in the batch, it was like 3. Was that correct?
Yeah, basically. And they were all in the Bay Area.
Nice. Well, that's amazing. Yeah, I really, really want to talk with you again when you do the next lean hires and see what your experience is like. But yeah, thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you, good sir. Adios.